Hey, beautiful people, and welcome back to Mondays with Mondane. This is where we dive deep into life, love, liberty, and of course, democracy. And now more than ever, we just need to tell the truth. I'm your host, Edie Mondane, and tonight we're diving into an urgent, and necessary conversation. Ones that you ought to have with your kids at night, and again at the breakfast table before they leave the house. We're just 2 weeks into this administration. 2 weeks, people, and already it's chaos. The consequences for marginalized communities are staggering. This is not business as usual, people. Tonight is indeed special for me, and I am so honored to be joined by a true champion, my hero for justice, my big sister and friend, Joanne Hardesty, former state legislator and city commissioner. This is a bad girl. And she spent her career fighting for equality, equity, accountability, and the voices of the unheard. And she's done it free, y'all. So I know that she's all right. Hey, Joanne, how you doing, baby?
I am fabulous, and thank you for inviting me.
You are so beautiful.
Oh, stop.
You never change. And you look like you're about 14 years old. What's up with that?
Yeah, 14-year-old with all that great hair, right?
You know, one of her secrets is, I'm going to tell them, she likes to lay in hammocks in 80-degree, 90-degree weather with the sun beaming down upon her.
Who wouldn't?
Oh, my God. You know, the consequences of a Trump White House, just 2 weeks in, the short time that the current president has been in the White House has already been catastrophic. Damage and the potential harm to the marginalized communities is staggering. It's immeasurable. What we are witnessing is history repeating itself, but this time we must respond with unwavering resilience. The unity that we saw in the 60s, the 50s, and we got to put these things to action. And there's an immediate impact on marginalized communities that you're going to be able to help us get through. You've worked tirelessly to advocate for the people. What do you see as the most immediate threat facing our community right now? Before you answer that, let's go over a quick checklist of what's on the table. Dismantling of DEI, the diversity, equity, and
Inclusion.
That's important. Being stripped away, safeguards that have helped the marginalized community, and sometimes they've hurt in education, employment, and governance, and defunding essential programs that harms Black and brown people first. When you're at the bottom, you get crushed. Systemic barriers to success is already evident in those places. The mass deportations, we're looking at that, people, and endangering immigrant families and creating fear-driven communities. I was called the other day by a family living outside of Salem and said, "You've got to come and help us. They're beating on our doors. What do we do?" Oh, my God. I was terrified for them. I said, I can pray with you, and you know, but the increase.
And don't open the door is the first thing you say. It's do not open the door. You are under no legal obligation to open the door. Once you open that door, they will step inside and they will take control. So that would be my first message. Don't answer the door.
That brings us to law enforcement authority, leading to more surveillance and policing in the marginalized communities. I mean, we're going back to change, y'all.
Well, let me just say, I am not surprised by any of the insanity that we are experiencing coming out of D.C. at the moment. I mean, the guy told us what he was going to do if he got back in office. Now, and the fact that people voted for him in large numbers means that people were willing to accept racism and sexism and homophobia, all for the purpose of the promises that he made. I mean, and I will say, Black women will not save democracy this time.
Well,
right?
You know, the attack on reproductive rights, talking about Black women, disproportionately affecting low-income women and women of color. Right. Joanne, You've seen firsthand
Yes.
how these politics impact everyday lives.
Yes.
How do we respond?
Well, let me just say that there's a role for everybody, right? And everybody has to do something, right? So, for example, the first thing that Trump did was do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I would encourage people, please don't say DEI, say diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Let's say it together.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And then ask people, so which one of those do you disagree with? Do you disagree with the equity part, the diversity part, or the inclusion part? Because all three of those parts, once again, benefit primarily white women, right?
Now,
And
go
so
deeper into that. Stop right there and just pin that.
right, because anytime, any civil rights gains that we have made, the true beneficiaries have always been the majority white women. Affirmative action.
Quietly.
52% of affirmative action hires are of what? White women, right? You know, with city contracts, they love to say, oh, my wife is part of the business, right? So that they can get the white women points, extra points. For
Quietly.
not quietly, they do it. They do it over and over and over again, right? And so, which is why I say, please don't come, like I keep seeing online, well, where's Kamala? You guys rejected Kamala. Kamala's rested with her husband. She earned the right to rest with her husband, right? So don't be calling black women to go get on the front line again. Been there, done that. I mean, we saved the country the last time when we got Biden elected, right? And so stop blaming black women and stop demanding that you partner with black women. Go work with the white women that you know in your circles, in your spaces, and educate them. Get them to get on the front line, right? Don't be telling Latinos to go out and march because of immigration reform. Tell your white sisters and brothers to get out there and march on the line, right? And put their bodies and their resources on the line, right?
And that was what was supposed to have been the message during the Black Lives Matter movement. And it got what do you call it when you get distracted?
Twisted.
Twisted. There's another word I was looking for that I can't find. But we turn things around. I mean, when we look at the civil rights movement, in its inception,
Yes.
we see white women, particularly my power to my Jewish women people, that said, look, we ain't doing this.
Right.
So they came to the forefront and said, we've got to be the stirrers of the pot.
That's right.
So we've got to come back to that place.
Right.
I mean, full circle. We see
Right.
our history repeating itself again. So
Right.
we've got to get back to the original mindset of what was going on. And this time, we got to finish the job.
And let me just say, what can we do? All the companies that have stopped their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, we need to stop spending our money with them.
Okay.
If you don't care about me, you shouldn't get my money, right? And so that includes companies like Target, Amazon, Disney, Ford, Lowe's, McDonald's, Starbucks, Toyota, Walmart. Right? If you shop at any of those stores, walk with your dollars. Because I don't know if you've heard, but Target stock is going way down to the point where their stock holders are suing them because they didn't tell them they were going to lose all this money when they did away with their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
Now, I didn't know that.
Yep.
So we're going to have a list of those places that she just listed, plus on the screen so you can look at those things.
Right.
But we've got to move, people. Money moves.
Money moves power, right?
Yes, it does.
The companies that are standing with their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, we need to thank them, right? Companies like Apple, Costco, NBC, Kroger, Ben & Jerry's, Walgreens, J.B. Morgan and Chase. Now, when have they ever been on the right side of history? Old Navy and Microsoft, right? So these are companies that have said publicly, no, we're going to keep our diversity, equity, and inclusion program. Those are the folks we should be spending our money with, right? I mean, so those are like simple things that anybody can do without joining any group, without leaving their house, without anything else, right? We should thank our 2 U.S. senators for actually leading the charge for the filibuster to prevent confirmation of this crazy man for the Department of, which one now? Department of Interior. So I mean, we have to educate. We have to find real information and not just listen to X or Facebook or Twitter and think
Research.
You're informed, right? And my personal favorite: buy banned books. You need to have hard copies of banned books because it will become, if there becomes a day where you won't be able to get them in your local public library, I want to have those hard copies on hand. And plus, I've always loved to have it. I got to touch and feel my books anyway.
This lady here, she's ridiculous. I mean, she just reads.
I can't help myself.
It's sickening. Anyway.
So I think that there are some practical things, but you're right about we have to build a brand new underground railroad.
Well, the resilience that we were taught doing places like that for centuries, Black Americans have had to excel.
Yes.
Under duress and working 3 or 4 times harder than any other group of people, just to get in places that were designed to exclude us.
Right.
So the attack on DEI is really a feather in our cap, because when you talk about it and when you think about it, we're some of the most educated people on the planet.
Well, and the ones that are least appreciated for the hard road it took to get that education.
Yes.
I mean, the thing that appalls me right now is these mediocre white men who claim that they have been overlooked because of DEI are now in these positions of power. I mean, they're bringing in like 20-somethings and teenagers, right, to run the Treasury Department. I mean,
I was trying to not go there.
right? I mean, so the reality is we have very mediocre white men who are now in a position, and Elon Musk, I mean, he never made a penny in his life. All his money has been inherited.
Yeah.
And so he's bringing this apartheid mindset from South Africa to the United States. And they're talking about doing away with the Department of Education. Do you know who that hurts worse? Red states.
Yes.
Because they already have the worst education outcomes on the planet.
already.
And so you want a stupid population so that they don't understand that you do not have their best interests at heart.
Wow. There's something that we've got to do, however. And in every community, you know, the Italians tell me that they have it, the Koreans, the Japanese, I mean, everybody's got it. We somehow have to understand that as a minority people, the infighting that we do, weakens us, the hissing and the backbiting and the jealousy and all that other kind of stuff. We're going to have to put that stuff to rest.
Well, you know, the good news is that, again, I think, you know, we should be doing work in our community to keep our community safe.
Yeah.
You know, as Malcolm X used to say, right, when white people get pneumonia, right, get a cold, black people get pneumonia, right? And that is what's coming down the pipeline right now. If you think about it, you're going to do away with the Department of Education and give $10,000 vouchers to everybody, right? And you can't get into a private school for less than $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
So what's that going to do? You're going to have an entire population of uneducated people that will believe this Magna mindset stuff.
Well, you know what? Tina Turner told us best. What's love got to do with it? Hey, listen, how do we counteract the divisions that keep us from making progress?
Well, let me just say that again.
You've been there.
I you know, as someone who was, I was blamed for everything.
Yeah, that's why I said you've been there.
I was blamed for the housing crisis.
Thank you for the T-shirt, by the way.
A T-shirt and coffee mug, right?
Okay.
So I know what it's like to be targeted because I'm a black woman who speaks up for people who don't have a voice in places where power is being exerted. And I can tell you that it is painfully lonesome when you're the one under attack,
Yeah.
when people see it and they just kind of sit back and wait to see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are right now. I mean, people are like in shock, but this is what this administration wants, shock and awe. Like so many things happening at one time that you can't pay attention, right?
Yeah.
But you can pay attention to where you spend your money. You can pay attention to where you spend your time. And you can pay attention to how you're educating your kids about what's happening in this moment in history.
You know what? When you take a picture, in the old days, they had these flash bulbs.
Right.
And you couldn't see for
Right,
minutes
for a minute or
afterwards.
two, right.
This is what's happening now. And people start turning their nose up, witchcraft. Because I wrote a book called The Unintentional Witchcraft. And stuff that we do every day. It's going to be on the market soon. But anyway, that this is witchcraft. And we all been bedazzled. I think X said again, bamboozled. It's more than that. It's the magic tree of the sliding hand and smoking mirror gag, and we've believed for decades that we have no power. The power is in us people. We have the power. You and I are the people, and we're the people that can do it. And all you people that had privilege, you're going to have to get on the front line. We're witnessing the rise of an oligarchy.
Right.
A atom that has to be stomped out.
Right. Well, the good news is there were marches.
She's got good news.
There were marches in all 50 states yesterday for immigrant rights, for trans rights, for not gutting the Constitution. In all 50 states, there were marches. But you didn't see that on like big time media. But I mean, if you go through social media, every single state, just about, all 50 states had a march of some size, pushing back against this Trump and Elon Musk takeover, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the good news. I mean, people are, in fact, waking up. I mean, our congressional members, right, were on the floor all night, right? So that's a positive.
So we're beyond the flash right now.
So we're beyond because some of us knew, right? Because he told us as he was running for office, what was he going to do? He was going to be vindictive, go after people who didn't treat him nice, right? Go after all the Department of Justice folks who investigated him. I mean, the first thing he said after the plane crash now is that, they must have been DEI hires, right? And when asked, are you going to go to the site where like over 200 people lost their lives? His response was, what, you want me to swim? I mean, this is supposedly the president of the United States of America, right? And he is making us look like real idiots all over the world.
The United States of America, where billionaires are dictating policies,
Yes.
and they're gutting social programs, and their consolidation of power.
Well, again, the good news is thank goodness for the courts, because today a federal judge stopped in and actually prohibits Elon Musk from having access to Social Security information and Medicare information and tax files. Because who would have a billionaire who's on track to be a trillionaire to have access to where all federal dollars go? I mean, you have to have a secret security clearance to even have access to that information. And they don't. And Trump is
a top
idiot.
secret security clearance.
Security clearance, right? And but it's going to take constrained effort. But here's a date that people should keep in mind, which is March 15th. March 15th is the date of the budget vote. And to vote to
tell us a little bit about that.
And so federal appropriations. Now, let me go back and do this like little education program, right? Because the president doesn't understand that we have three branches of government.
Three.
We have the legislative branch.
Yes.
We have the judicial branch, and then we have the administrative branch, like the executive branch. He is the executive branch.
Yes.
Congress is who actually passes appropriations, which is money.
Yes.
The president has no say in where dollars go.
Yes.
Right? He can advocate just like anybody else can advocate, but he does not have a vote as to where those dollars go. So thankfully, we have folks now standing up saying, excuse me, there's this little thing called the Constitution that says you can't do that, right? This thing with this whole Dodge, the Department of Government Efficiency, I just heard to say that they have spent $6 million already, and that in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it's like, so if this is the Department of Government Efficiency, what do they spend that on?
Yeah.
Because they fired how many federal employees? That's the other thing, right? The president doesn't hire. The president can have a political appointees.
Yes.
But they don't get to dictate career public servants whether they stay on their job or not, right? So we're going to be in court for a long time over that.
And this
stuff.
is maddening, especially when you see corporations buying influence.
Yes.
While workers' rights
Yes.
are completely
diminished, right.
dismantled.
Yes.
Media distractions keep the public blind to real power shifts, and this is not democracy.
Well, this is the result of the media giving Trump a free pass throughout both campaigns, not just this last campaign, but the first one as well. I mean, the fact that they no longer would fact check.
Yeah.
The stupidity that came out of his mouth. Right? I mean, it's like I grew up, with the Dan Rathers of the world,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
Who
Max Roby.
You could trust that what you were getting was impartial information about what was taking place. Right now, you have these same oligarchs that own the media outlets, and so they are deciding what information the public should have access to. We should all be very alarmed at that.
That's right.
The fact that he's suing CNN because, or is it NBC? NBC because of the interview they did with Kamala Harris. Is it CBS? CBS.
Thank you.
He's suing CBS because of the interview that they did, the 60 Minutes interview they did with then presidential candidate Kamala Harris. It's like, so what he's trying to do is intimidate these media, the few media companies left, into only providing good news about him, rather than what's really taking place in society. So I will say podcasts like yours, independent media, is really vital in this time, because we have to be able to speak directly to people in their living rooms, in their homes, so that they know what's really going on as compared to what's being filtered through places like X and what limited information they allowed to go through broadcast TV.
Being ruled by the wealthy few.
Yes.
How do we fight against the corporate takeover of the government? What do you see?
Well, I mean, what I'm already seeing, people taking to the streets, like there was this organized 50 states march that happened yesterday. There will be more of that. I mean, everybody should be calling their congressional members and demanding that they stand up against this government takeover. Mm-hmm. People should be writing letters to the editor. I mean, all the stuff that we've been doing like forever, but they need to heighten it, right? I mean, I think what normally happens is good progressive white folks sit around and wait and see what black and brown people are going to do, and then they come and try to hide inside of that circle. It's like, no, boy, it's time for you to be like at the forefront, on the forefront of that circle, staring it, because it is not safe, quite frankly.
When you stir from the top, it rises from the bottom.
That's right.
And everybody rises.
And everybody rises. Yes. I mean, the fact that one of the first things he did was pardon all the January 6th rioters that tried to break into the U.S. Capitol that day.
Yeah.
He pardoned all of them. Now, so what do you think that means? What that means is there's a armed militia that's ready to do whatever he wants them to do, and they are terrifying. They were terrifying because, they would show up in Portland. They showed up with weapons.
My God.
And the police did not stop them.
This is something we're going to have to continue this conversation, but we're going to kind of talk about something that's really important, and that's the food insecurity, a growing crisis in America. Food insecurity is already off the chain, and under this administration, it's not going to do anything to get worse. This administration wants to cut food assistance programs.
Yes, they do. Healthcare programs.
And rising food costs, the monopolization of food production.
Right.
As someone who has fought for economic reprise, economic justice, what policies should we be demanding right now? We should be demanding more community farms, right? Who do we talk to? When
We talk to the city. What land can you help people actually build community gardens on?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's already owned by government, it won't cost any money to actually acquire the space, right? I mean, we should be really talking about how do we build more community gardens, especially in areas where there's a lot of food insecurity, especially like East Portland, right? And in some parts of North Portland, there's severe food inequality,
Yes.
right? And you only have fast food, or you only have like the convenience store chicken and hot dogs and stuff like that. So not healthy food. And I mean, the same folks in government are trying to cut food programs that feed kids in the classroom. I mean, they had the nerve to say, well, if they're hungry, they should go get a job. Their job is to go to school so they get educated, right? And you can't learn on an empty stomach. So, so we got to fight to keep those school programs. Here's a question I have. I mean, I'm like, well, if this is a federal government that's going to stop sending money to sanctuary cities, then the state of Oregon should have no obligation to send any money to the federal government.
Dirt.
We should hold on to our money. So I want to know, so what's the governor doing? What's the legislature doing to make sure that they put a pause on sending like not one red penny to the federal government? Because they've already put us on the list that they're going to cut our funding.
All of that. Many of Trump's executive orders border on unconstitutional and illegal nonsense. They're designed to restrict federal oversight of law enforcement. Oh my God. Revoke key environmental protections and circumvent checks and balances.
Right.
You know, in your experience, what can be done to challenge these orders and hold this administrator accountable? And how does it really affect us coming from city government, moving up to state government, moving up to the White House? There's a reason for that, right?
Right. And we can have the most impact at the local level.
Yes.
So what is the city and the county doing to make sure that they're going to protect Portlanders, right, and Multnomah County residents, right? What are they? They're all saying the right things, right? Well, we're not gonna cooperate with ICE, and we're not gonna do this. But we also know the police have lied to us over and over again about what they will and won't do, and so we need to make sure as a community that they really are living up to this sanctuary status that we supposedly have. We also need to make sure that they're like expanding diversity, equity, and inclusion program and not backing away from it quietly. I'm curious about local corporations.
Yeah.
Are local corporations, are they stepping up? Because they've been pretty quiet so far, right? What are they doing to make sure that people know, no, we still are committed? And let's face it, all this whining about diversity, equity, and inclusion, most folks weren't really that committed to it anyway, right? It was just all a performative action to pretend somehow we believed in equality.
A checked box.
It was a checked box, right? If we could just check the box, we can say, okay, see, we have this program, right? Because when I got to the city of Portland, I was like, well, how can every department have like one equity person? Isn't it the director's job to like be responsible for equity and inclusion, right, and diversity? Like, how do you put it on one low-level staff person with no support staff to be responsible for the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, right?
You know, there's so much going on so quickly, and there's so much to talk about.
Right.
We're going to have to take our time to talk about things.
We are, and one piece at a time.
One piece.
Because we can't do it all overnight.
No,
right?
we can't.
We didn't get here overnight, but we have to understand we got here because people didn't step up when they were like first blaming, they were blaming DEI, right? Oh, DEI is the problem, right? Oh, like we're just getting, white men don't have a chance because of there is no data anywhere that shows because of DEI programs, all of a sudden white men aren't being hired.
Wow.
Please. I mean, in fact, most equity programs, if they have 2 to 5 to 8% people of color, they pat themselves on the back.
Wow.
Right? But because mainstream media and even local folks. They're not pushing back. They didn't push back on that.
Yeah.
So now here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
With him with the stroke of a pen saying we're doing away with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
And some people even said, well, that's probably best because we want to be fair.
Wait a minute. Let's give it a chance. Listen, people. We'd be here all night.
We could be.
We're facing unprecedented, never seen before. And it's in a solemn democracy. My sister has talked about some of those ways, but we've got to look at these 7 must takeaways for what needs to be done. We've got to mobilize, and we have to mobilize nonviolently. Take it to the streets, organize town halls, and make your voices heard. We've got to boycott corporate supporters, defund the corporations' bankrolling oppression. You heard our sister talk about it tonight. And we've got to vote at every level, people. Your vote does count. City council, school board, governor, and Congress, every seat, every place matters.
Yes.
Support independent media, folks. Mondays with Mondane. Check him out. Make sure he's out there. Seek out and amplify truth tellers like your boy here. And strengthen community networks. Support food drives. Give it up, babies. Mutual aid groups, financial assistance initiatives. Be on top of it. And important, hold leaders accountable. Demand transparency. Show up at town halls and expose corporate officials. Let your finger rage. And all it can do is put you out, right? Embrace good trouble. John Lewis died with this in his voice.
I see that.
Encourage challenge, injustice at every turn, disrupt, resist, and refuse. I ain't doing it. I'm not going to comply. Listen, we got to say goodnight to Joanne, but which of these steps that we've just talked about, and we talked a lot about them, do you think is the most urgent for marginalized community at this moment? What's best for us to do right now?
I think what's best right now is to have a safety plan because a lot of us aren't feeling safe.
Yeah.
And whether that means from white supremacists and Proud Boys coming back to our communities, whether that's from corporations that are like treating their employees poorly and so not allowing them to negotiate union salaries, good union salaries. Look at Providence. Nurses have been out on strike now for over 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And knock on wood, hopefully they'll be back. But show up at city halls, show up at the county board meetings, show up at the Oregon legislature that's now figuring out the state's budget for the next year. There's a lot going on, but we can have the most impact locally. And so I would say whatever's closest to you, you don't have to do it all. Just pick one.
And we're going to have to include, I think, Joanne, our youth and our young adults because they've got the legs, mind, and bodies to put up with all that. So what we're going to have to do is say, hey, y'all, have you thought about doing this? And talk to your children.
Talk to your children. Because I got to tell you, the children are much smarter than we are when it comes to getting messages out to their base, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, we do. It has to be a multi-generational effort.
That's exactly right.
But again, honestly, I'm just saying, just don't depend on Black people to organize it, to lead it, to be pulling you, kicking and screaming to the march, to the rally, to the council meetings.
Yeah.
Because we are exhausted. We are exhausted.
Woo.
And every morning I wake up thinking we could have had a competent, intelligent, empathetic, kind person as president of the United States.
You know, resilience doesn't rule out
taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself.
Dr. King told us at this moment was going to come.
Yep.
We are the unsettling force that will shake the foundations of oppression. John Lewis called us to get into good trouble. The time for that, my beloved, is right now. Hey, we can whistle while we walk. You know, they used to have the slaves whistle while they walked, especially when they was bringing the food, so they know that they wasn't spitting it or nothing like that. Or we can march unapologetically, unafraid, and united. We got to move into the future, people, and we've got to move in with demand. Which will it be? Joanne, thank you for your voice, darling.
Always a
And
pleasure.
thank you for being so pretty. Your leadership and your unwavering commitment to justice is not unnoticed. And I applaud you, my sister.
I
And I
appreciate
keep
that.
telling her every day, you're coming out of retirement. No, I'm not. You're coming out of retirement. No, I'm not. You're coming out of retirement. Okay. To all the listeners out there, we cannot afford to wait and see. The time to act is right now. And remember, this is our country. Our voices matter. Let's make sure that we're heard. Join me next week on Mondays with Mondene as we continue to speak truth and challenge injustice and build the moment we need to protect democracy. Until then, stay vigilant, stay engaged, and stay in the fight.
All right.
Hey, a special shout out to our sponsors, Poshines. It's not just another restaurant, you know better, but it's an institution located at 8139 North Denver, right in the Kenton district in Portland, Oregon. It's the best soul food this side of the Willamette. And then right around the corner, there's Aunties and Tanties daycare services. These are your aunts that take care of your babies better than your grandmama did. And Adorn Electric, they really light up our lives. They light up this set right now. We're grateful for their support on this podcast, and you can visit me, Edie Mondene, right here at Celebration Tabernacle at 8131 North Denver in Portland, Oregon. A special thank you to our production team, Dion, Robin, Andy, and Paul. Not one of them is bigger than the other, and they all stand tall, and ain't none of them as big as me. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and followers. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a thing from Mondays with Mondene. And be sure to follow us on Facebook. I think it's on this side, right? Can you see it? And then on YouTube, there you are over there. And then we're going to be doing some other platforms I'm excited about real soon. But thanks one more time for tuning into this station on this night and on this day. And it's just not about the music, it's about the message. Let's keep the conversation going. You can make a difference. See ya. You know, I talk about a lot about knowing where you came from to know where you're going. Well, I came from the projects of St. Louis, Missouri, and I ended up into the majestic mountaintops of Portland, Oregon. It's been a wonderful journey, and Lewis and Clark took that journey from St. Louis to Portland, and I took it too. It talks about who I am, and as I'm with you often in the in cyberspace or on websites or on the, what do you call it, social media, I want you to know a little bit about me and who I am. This book talks about my fantasies, my failures, my triumphs, and more than that, it talks about the resiliency of being able to continue to go forward regardless of the odds. I'd get a copy. It's called From Maladies to Melodies. And I hope that you enjoy it and give me some feedback. God bless.
Hey, it's time for you to come to Post Shine. Check out that catfish sandwich. Oh my goodness, is that the shrimp po' boy? Man, look at that chocolate chip cake. Man, I need to get over to Post Shines at 8139 North Denver right now because this food looks delicious. Or call if you'd like, 503-978-9000. And don't miss it, you'll be sorry.
In times gone past, we find ourselves making excuses so that people reminded, ooh, I've got to get home and tend to the brand new missus. I need some time alone. Can't this wait until I finish texting on my phone?